empathy, nurturing, patience, thoughtfulness, vulnerability, sensuality, and intuition. According to Cara McCarron, founder of She's the Owner, these are the 7 traits of feminine energy. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about the importance of balancing this feminine energy with our masculine energy, which helps us in risk-taking, decision-making, giving us that hunter mindset, that goal-oriented view of the world, which we so often tap into as entrepreneurs. Cara's here to teach us about the importance of the balance between feminine and masculine energy and to give us some tips as to how we can tap into either one when we feel it's appropriate. This is Chats with Gigi, your space for growth, inspiration, and learning, covering the topics that matter to women everywhere, empowering you in your personal and professional life. Are you ready? Here we go. Cara, so I just want to go ahead and dive right into this because I think this topic is so important, and that is your concept of masculine and feminine energy and how we all have both, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So She's the Owner is a company I just launched recently. I have 2 companies, and one of the things that I've come to realize through, and I do a lot of Tony Robbins events, which is part of the mission around She's the Owner, was this idea that there's the feminine energy and masculine energy within us, each of us. So men have it, women have it. It's not exclusive to men or women. And as female business owners, we tend to show up a lot more significantly in our masculine energy. And so that's decision-making, goal setting, be more assertive. If you're going into a meeting, you tend to just show up in that masculine energy. And what ends up happening as women is that we start to be off balance with the feminine energy stuff. And for me, what that meant was I wasn't being as thoughtful. I wasn't being as patient or nurturing or vulnerable was a huge one. And so I built this new business around really talking about that. There's a podcast around it, celebrating it with different kinds of like lifestyle things, apparel, agendas, and that sort of thing, just to sort of keep women, because I find like when you talk to another woman and you say, do you find that you're more in your masculine? First, they're like, well, I hadn't thought of it that way. I hadn't really put it in that terminology. But yeah, definitely, I'm showing up more on that side of it than I am on the feminine. And it just, for me, it just doesn't feel balanced. Like I don't feel in my zone if I'm not celebrating both sides of myself.
And just to be clear,
I just found that I was living more into the masculine.
Yeah. And just to be clear, this has nothing to do with your sensuality, and it has nothing to do with gender. This is just the traits that we express, right? When we are are labeling ourselves, especially as an entrepreneur, like you said, you want to be more direct. You want to be a little bit more demanding, and your demeanor is a little bit harder. It's a little bit more, where you're not going to be maybe as nurturing to your employees, because the truth is that things just have to get done, right? So why do you think it is that as women, we feel that in order to get the respect that we deserve as entrepreneurs, as the boss, that we need to be so far into our masculine energy versus our feminine one? What do you think has created that mindset for us?
That's a great question. I think, well, I mean, as a woman, I've been in business for many years in one form or another. And I think, and I hate doing the, separating the boys from the girls kind of mentality, but I'm going to. And really what it looks like to me is if I'm, let's say I go to a networking event, and this shit has happened to me. Like I go to a networking event, and if I'm in my feminine energy, which is, just more conversational, maybe softer and more, I'm listening, all that sort of thing. Some men, obviously not all men, but in some situations I've been in, they take that as sort of, they can overtake my energy. And so I learned along the way at a really young age that if I don't show up, and really it's like you can almost equate it to the hunter and gatherer, right? So if I don't show up in my hunter mode, then I tend to get into situations where I'm not comfortable if I'm too far in my feminine. So I think it's just one of those things that, men in general, we need to show up in that sort of matching their energy and matching that tends to put them back a little bit. So they're not quite, because it's like alpha dog, right? Like somebody's got to be beta and someone's got to be the alpha.
Uh-huh.
And in those types of situations, I find and I don't necessarily think that's true with your team. Like I think you can show up in that more feminine, thoughtful, zone some of the time. But when we're, for me, if I just want to get shit done, yeah, I'm in like that hunter mode. And because you're more resourceful in getting things done in that state of mind. So I think it's important, but it's for me, when I see it happening when I'm outside networking or whatever, and if I'm not showing up in that masculine energy, things can go wrong, and they have gone wrong. So I've learned along the way that that's important. But I think it's important to read the situation too, right? Like if I'm talking to another woman and she's really in her masculine energy and I'm trying to meet her with my equal, we're not getting anywhere.
Right.
So if I soften and I can get into being like, what is this woman really trying to say to me? And I can be more patient and thoughtful and nurturing, then all of a sudden she softens and then we're getting somewhere. But if it's like, it's kind of like, when they say it's like a pissing contest, right? Like,
yeah,
it's true. We've seen it, right? But women do it too. Like we can't just say the guys do it. We do it too. I've seen it.
Oh, absolutely. I've done it too. I think we all have. But Cara, when would you say is the right time to show up in our personal lives in our feminine energy? And when is it the right time to show up in our masculine energy? Because there is a time and place for each, right?
Well, I think for me, when I'm trying, like so I have two companies. And the other one is the content company, which is the first thing, the thing that's generating the income to support the second company. So for me, it's like right now I'm in the middle of a deal where there's a new client that's going to come on. And I have to I'm very conscious of, and this is literally what I'm asking myself right now. Am I in my ego or am I in my masculine, aggressive sort of hunter when I'm making a decision whether I'm going to move forward with this client? Or can I soften a bit and look at it from my feminine? So I ask myself, like I will straight up say, Cara, what side of this do you need to be on to really make this decision? But I've learned over time that when I'm in my feminine, I'm in my heart. And when I'm in my masculine, I'm in my head. And so it's that simple for me. So when I'm with my kids, and that was really the sort of the beginning of all of this part of it, was I have 4 daughters from the ages of 32 all the way down to 10.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm like, and 2 of them are entrepreneurs. It's really, actually, the youngest one has her own little business at school. It's hilarious. But I started to notice that I was like, get this, I was like talking to them like they were team, like in my work life. And I'm like, wait a second, like that's not how mom needs to show up. I need to show up in my feminine. And so that was, some of the time it's like, yeah, we got to get this done. We got to go to school, whatever. And you can be in that more, hunter, let's get shit done kind of zone, but not all the time. And so I catch myself, like, I'll say things like, and this goes back to my Tony Robbins learnings, like from being at the events and all that, is how can I serve my kid right now? How can I serve her better? Is it by being like A or is it like being B? And I know the answer because I've taught myself to listen. So if I need to soften and get more in my feminine, it's really for me. So like the long and short of it is just start asking questions. Like once you understand these are the traits of feminine energy and these are the traits of masculine energy, you can just start to ask yourself, like, it's really about slowing down and paying attention, right? Like, am I getting the results I want from my daughter when I'm asking her to do the dishes like this? Probably no. So maybe I need to shift gears and ask her like this. And so you just start to slow down and listen to yourself and figure out, like, which hat am I wearing and is it going to get me the outcome that I want? Because that's ultimately it, right? Like, I want to achieve the outcome of something. So I need to ask myself, and getting really honest, like the ego or the head is the hardest thing to shut up. Like, for sure.
Absolutely. Who are you telling? This is a day-to-day practice, I think, of being able to separate. It's a minute to minute. You're absolutely right. And definitely being able to separate those two, because there's nothing wrong with being strong, but you got to make sure it's for the right reasons. So for these women that are looking to get more in their feminine energy, what are some exercises or practices that you recommend that they take on throughout their day to be able to better connect with their feminine energy? And then I'll ask you the same question on the opposite side for masculine energy.
But I love those. So for me, and I actually ask my guests too, and just women that I talk to, like once they're conscious of it. So for me, a couple of things, like for sure the typical like girly things I call them, but like taking a bubble bath with candles and maybe having a glass of wine or whatever, that really tends to slow me down and put me back in that feminine energy. Being in nature is massive for me. Like I listen to a lot of music that's sort of like, I would call it sort of meditation music, that sort of thing. And so for me, going in nature, and I'm in Toronto, so it's starting to get cold now and winter is coming. So it's more of a challenge for me, absolutely. But I like the heat. So when it's chilly, I'm a little bit of a suck, but I know when I'm outside and I can feel air on my face and I can see like the trees, all that sort of thing, that gets me very much in my feminine energy. Mm-hmm. The other thing is getting ready. Like, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I work from home. And if I get ready and I put my makeup on and I do my hair just to go downstairs to my home office, I feel way more in my feminine. Like, I feel like I've shown up, and I find that it takes, because I'm giving myself care, right? Mm-hmm. To put my makeup on, to do my hair. I'm taking the time to do that kind of stuff. So those things, and then just, you know, like having conversations with other women, I find is a really easy way to get into your feminine energy, because if you just sit down quietly, and it's all about the sort of energy around it. So if I'm sitting quietly with a girlfriend of mine and we're just talking about like, how are you feeling about stuff, that gets me into my zone of feminine energy. So there's a couple of ways that I do it. Dancing, huge one. Like I love Latin music. I love reggae, soca. I love all that kind of stuff. And when I move my body in, and I'm not giving a care about who's watching, and I'm just in it for me, I very much get in my feminine energy. So those are sort of like some of the ways, that quick wins that you can do if you're looking for ways. And then for my masculine, it's stuff that I've learned over time from my business coaches and from events that I've gone to. But I have like power moves. So if I really need, like if I'm really trying to get into the zone of, I'm about to close a deal with a new client or prospect or something, I will physically, for me, it's more physical. So I'll put my shoulders back, I'll stand up in that, you know, sort of typical Superman, Superwoman pose. I've got a move where I'll say yes, and I'll just punch my fist down into the air, and I just get really like amped, like just like you would think you're going to get amped to get in that hunter mind.
Yeah,
that's how I do it. Guys will beat their chest. We have breasts. That's not the most comfortable way
yes,
to
ladies.
do it. So
we got to take care of our GGs. Come on now.
Right. Exactly. But those are kind of the ways that, you know, and just chin up, those kinds of things. Like just really, it's a physical feeling for me to get into that mindset where I'm present.
Yeah. And I think there's also a certain confidence that comes with being in your masculine energy as well. Because some of the things that you mentioned are some of the things that I talk about in my courses to boost confidence. And they're the same. Taking a deep, deep breath and bringing your shoulders back, lifting your chin as you're walking, exhaling while you maintain that posture. Standing in your wholesome, tall, I am here presence is definitely something that I agree is not only going to make you feel more confident, but that I can definitely see now as you explain it, how it would help you to further tap into your masculine energy.
Yeah, it feels amazing too. Like, and you feel unstoppable, right? Like when you're in that body, when your physiology is like that, you definitely feel unstoppable. Nothing's scary. Not a lot can shake you. But that's it. That's a balance, right? And it's because I wouldn't always want to be that way or in my feminine. I love to have both, and I love to be aware of both. It's a beautiful combo for sure.
Tell me what advice you would give to women that are just now listening to this show, that are just listening to our conversation for the first time and feel that overwhelming weight of, wow, I haven't been serving my children, like you said, in the best way because I've been so much in my masculine energy, trying to get them through a disciplined morning, trying to get them to understand these important things about life. And, you know, the delivery has been more, in my ego, it has been harder and harsher than I could have done if I was doing this in my feminine energy. That can be an overwhelming, heavy realization to have. What message do you have for those moms, for those women right now?
So,
Cara, hold on. Before you answer the question, I have to put you on hold for just 1 second, okay?
Sure.
Hold on.
Yeah. So I would say I have a wide range of kids. One of them is my stepdaughter. She's 32. And so what I've learned over time is the biggest thing, I would say, the biggest message is stop taking yourself so seriously. Like, from the first baby I had to like the 10-year-old, I mean, everything I did had to be according to a plan and had to be very strict. And that's when I was more in my masculine. And I've learned over time, like, it's not that serious. Really, all the kid wants is just to feel loved and nurtured by you. And so really spending any time trying to stick to these regimes and stick to these really crazy expectations. And that's it, right? If you let go of expectation, trade your expectation for appreciation. Mm-hmm. So instead of expecting them to do X, Y, Z, find a way to appreciate what they're doing. I think that's such a huge thing, that when I get out of my hunter mentality or my masculine energy, and I just stop and like, I let myself relish. And like, the other thing too, that's massive that I've learned really recently is like, they're all going to get older and they're all going to want to leave and move out. So mm-hmm. why am I stressing and being like this drill sergeant over these stupid little things that really don't make a difference? And I ask myself very frequently, and I ask the kids, is this going to matter to you when you're 100 years old and you're looking back at this moment? Is this going to really matter? So me being a drill sergeant at this moment, is it really going to matter in 5 years? No. So can I soften in this moment? Absolutely. Can I find a way to enjoy? And gratitude. Gratitude is the most significant way to be in your feminine energy, I think, where if you stop and it's just becoming aware. There's no trick to it. No one's going to tap you on the shoulder and be like, hey, mom, you're acting too much like this. You just have to get in the practice of recognizing it. But gratitude is like the lightning quick way to get from masculine energy to feminine energy. Absolutely. That would be the biggest takeaway, is find something in that moment to be grateful for, and all of a sudden everything softens. And it's the most beautiful thing to witness and feel as a woman. When you can get into that situation from masculine into gratitude, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And then and everything lines up after that. But gratitude, I'd say, is the biggest way to get from A to B, for sure.
And I think it's important for anyone who's listening right now who realizes that there's so much in their masculine energy, that it's okay to forgive yourself for that. It's okay to be kind to yourself. That should be step one in getting in your feminine energy, is to have, of the 7 traits, which you list as empathy, nurturing, patience, thoughtfulness, vulnerability, sensuality, and intuition, starting with that first one with yourself is I would think very important, is to have empathy and to have kindness with yourself. If you do come to realize you've been too far into your masculine energy, it's okay. And to just be patient with yourself moving forward, and to be, like you said, aware that you have the power to choose how you want to show up in life, whether it's with your partner, at your business, or with your children, or with your friends. You can make that decision. Just be kind with yourself if you make a couple more mistakes from here to then.
Yeah, because that's it, right? We're all making constantly. I'll make 10 mistakes today. Yeah. And I say, okay, all right. So I made some mistakes today. Great. Like, and that has to be the conversation. It can't be, oh, Cara, you're stupid. Oh, Cara, you're that. It's like, all right, next. Like, if you're in a state of gratitude, you'll find it something to be like, it's hard. It's like working out. It's the practice. It's like yoga. It's like anything. And I think it's important. It's beautiful that you're saying what you're saying, because it is every day you have a new opportunity, right? Like, it's not, your past doesn't equal your future. And so being kind to yourself, it's practice. But once you get there, everything else just gets really easy.
I love that. And now we can't wrap up the show without talking about She's the Owner, because the story behind the name of this business is one that I'm just like, yes, girl, yes. And I could not say it the way you can. So why don't you go ahead and share with everybody how your business came about? We know the foundation of it, but how did this name come to be?
So it's funny. So I had a coach that I was working with earlier last year, and I was just getting frustrated with the way that entrepreneurs, how we feel, we don't talk openly enough, I don't think, as entrepreneurs. We're not talking about how we feel. We're not talking about the struggles. We put on this thing that we think it's all perfect and very Instagram, Pinterest-like, and it's not. And so we were talking about it, and I said, I want to start this group where we're having this more open dialogue. And then on another meeting, I said to him, when I first started the content company, I would do these trade shows, and I remember one time I took a male writer. He's a guy friend of mine, and he worked for me. And I took him along to this trade show, and everybody, mostly the men, went up to him thinking he was the owner of the company.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, holy cow. So after a while, I would hear him say, I don't know, ask Cara, she's the owner. And so when I was working with my coach, he's like, that's what you should call it. And I was like, yeah, that actually sounds pretty awesome. So that's how She's the Owner was born. And it's been an evolution. And now, and that's how it starts, right? Like you have this little bit of a grain of an idea, and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, you're like, okay, now I really understand what I'm doing. But I believe that women are going to change the world. I think that our feminine energy and our hearts are really what's going to shift the way everything is done on this planet. I really, really, really believe that. And so it's just the amount of support that we're all giving to one another now is unbelievable. And I love every second of it. And She's the Owner is a part of it. And so that's basically how it came to be.
I love that. And for the record, because I know I've got some pretty wonderful gentlemen listeners too, being in your feminine energy is not just for the ladies, right?
No.
Let's talk about that.
That's the thing. I would love, and I've talked to a few guy friends about it. When a man gets in his feminine energy, that is like the most beautiful, I think, sexy kind of like in a relationship setting way to be. Because if you're both being thoughtful and you're both being like nurturing, you're both being vulnerable, holy moly, like that's when real magic can happen. And women we can slip back and forth from the hunter-gatherer mode very easily. Men, not so much, right? They're conditioned to always be go, 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 aggressive and get the job done. So I think it's up to us, women, to have the conversation with a man and let them know, really show them how we respond to when I have a guy friend, he was in the military. He's come to the UPW in Miami actually next week. Mm-hmm. And looking at him, you would never believe how he really is, but he's very in touch with his feminine energy. He belongs to a group of men who practice feminine energy. Okay. Like actively practice how to be in all of these things. And he's one of the most beautiful souls I've ever known. And I can have the most incredible raw conversations with him because of it. Now, if he wasn't able to switch gears and he was just in his masculine, he'd be trying to fix all my problems. Right?
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. Women want to just, talk and chat and talk it out. But if he couldn't switch and get into that other side of himself, the conversation would be really different. I would get frustrated. He would be like, woman, why aren't you listening to me? Here's the problem. Here's the solution. But really, I just want to talk it out. So I think when it's up to us, I sincerely, like mothers, aunties, friends, women, everything, it's up to us to make sure guys understand that it's not a gender thing. It's totally not. If you can get into all those traits with me and have a conversation, everything can change. Like that's where love happens. That's where understanding happens. That's where progress happens. And I think it's up to us women to really encourage guys to get in that zone for sure.
Now, Cara, I know that you have a very, very big plan to hook up a lot of women with a trip to Tony Robbins. Is that right?
Yes. So part of She's the Owner's mission is to celebrate the feminine, masculine energy. But the bigger one is to send 1,000 women to the next 2 years worth of Unleash the Power Within events with Tony Robbins. And it's really, for me, it's been a life-changing event for me. I've gone to 5. I've taken about 20 people now in the last little while, about a year. And I just want to make it a huge, huge number just because I feel if a woman goes to this event and they come home, they're going to teach their children how to love and learn better. They're going to teach their husbands and their coworkers. I just feel like teach one, reach one, or reach one, teach one. So, the goal is 1,000 women in the next 2 years, and then who knows after that.
Okay, and how do we get up on that?
So if you could follow us on Instagram, so at She's the Owner, there's information there. The podcast link is there, and all the information about the mission is there as well. So, or you can do www.she'stheowner.com.
All right, perfect. So all the details on how you can win a trip to go check out Tony Robbins with Cara McCarron. Thank you so much once again, Cara, for spending a little bit of time with us today.
You're so welcome. Thanks so much.
Now we want to hear from you. So join the conversation using the hashtag #ChatsWithGigi and let me know, how are you tapping into your feminine and masculine energy? You can always contact me directly on your favorite social media platform. You'll find me under Gigi Diaz Live. And please, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the podcast so you're the first to find out when we drop our next episode next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to Chats with Gigi.